fractious, aggressive, independent states, but they were unified. And it was an Austrian politician, I think at the time, who said, well, Italy is just a mere geographic expression. But you look at Italy today, that mere geographic expression is now a powerful nation state. So my question is, what is the idea? What is the big idea around which Nigerians can coalesce? What is the one thing, or two or three things that can define us? And as we go through this new century, as we face wave upon wave of change, what is the rallying point? And you might ask me later on what my own thoughts are. I will be honest with you. I don't have that. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I know that there are enough people who think well enough about Nigeria and want it to be that beacon which it can be. And it may not emerge just by somebody saying, this is what I think the big idea should be, but there is something around coalescing around a theme, if you like, a national myth, something that gives us currency around which we can coalesce. We've all seen the power of myths in the US elections, for instance. You see the power that an idea created, I think in that case, not for greater good, but for selfish ends. But you can see how, provided you get the right leader and the right idea, then you start to mobilize people's minds in a way which is quite powerful and unstoppable. Now, my second observation is about effective leadership in time of change, is just the power of diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of ethnicity. Study after study after study, in the corporate world at least, has shown that diverse organizations outperform those with homogeneous workforces. I think the best known study is the McKinsey report in 2015, which was called Diversity Matters. And just to remind those who haven't, to remind those who've seen it before and those who haven't, to tell you about it. It was a study that was done across 366 public companies in the UK, US, Latin America, Canada. And it showed that companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry median. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity are 15% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. And you might legitimately say, well, that's fine for the corporate world. How does that apply in a nation state, in a nation like Nigeria? Well, I would say it's got everything to do with Nigeria, because Nigeria is one of the most diverse nations on earth. In that diversity lies a strength. The meeting of minds from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, tends to work towards creating something greater than themselves. And there will be many on this platform who will say, well, that's going to be a challenge, but a challenge is not impossible. Does not mean something is impossible. But I think the challenge of diversity in Nigeria, I'm afraid, I think also requires a mindset, a different mindset than that which some I have seen in some circles. And I'll tell you what's struck me as very, very paradoxical of recent times. In the wake of the killing of George Floyd and the upsurge in Black Lives Matter, I know that Pastor Iqbal was interviewed at length about it in last year on Nigerian television, and I listened to his words, quite powerful words. But in the wake of all of that, you did have many Nigerians rightly calling out the bigotry of bigotry, marginalization, demonization, othering of Black and other people of color in the US. And I want to say this, I want to say that as sensitively as possible, but also as directly as possible. Some of those very same people who I know were condemning racism were also coming out with some of the most tribalistic comments about fellow Nigerians, based on nothing more than I could see than on tropes and stereotypes. And the bottom line for me, and I've always said it, is that the mindset of a racist is the same mindset a tribalist has, because it's based on fear, it's based on ignorance, and it's based on cognitive biases and sometimes lazy thinking. So while I say that the power of diversity is there to be harnessed, I understand that it is something which requires, in the Nigerian context, some difficult, uncomfortable questions to be asked about us. How do we treat people who are not like us? How do we overcome that innate desire to just be with people who think like us, who look like us, who come from the same background as we do? That for me is what fuels racism in the West, and I'm afraid that if we don't ask ourselves those same questions, we will fall into the same trap. By saying all of that, I'm not diminishing for one moment the very serious challenges that are prevalent in Nigeria in all regions, but I do think that some of that can be diffused to a certain extent by taking by having a more open mind about people of different backgrounds. Now, the third observation I want to make about with regard to the power of leadership and change. Is sorry, my wife just came in and I lost my train of thought. She just handed me a note. Is with regard to the power of fellowship, or followership, I should say. And you know, too often we're looking to others for leadership. We all want to be leaders ourselves. And I think one of the things I really like about this platform is that yes, it is talking about leadership, but it is also talking about those who can who perhaps themselves are not leaders, but can play a very, very significant role in enabling and propagating virtues of leadership. And I think that the more that you can bring about a movement, a momentum, the more you can encourage people to value their own participation and to see that there's value in them being involved, the greater change you will perpetuate. So my closing flourish is that I want to share with you a very short clip. Some of you may have seen it, and apologies if you have, but many people won't have seen it. It's a clip which makes this point I'm getting at very, very succinctly, and in an irreverent way, which I hope you will appreciate. But it makes the point that everybody has a role to play in leadership, not just those who start a movement. So with that, I'm going to run a video and let me know what you make of it. There it goes.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now, here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. Three is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come two more people, then three more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
So let me.
Comment on Wale. He says the shirtless guy is a better dancer than Segun. That's interesting. Segun, let me
So,
hear.
so that's what I wanted to leave at least this opening section with. It's a powerful. That video was shown at a partners conference I went to, and it was I always remember it because it makes the point in such a simple or powerful way, which is that we all see people doing things that we think, if I get involved, am I going to look at am I as much risk as he is? Am I making as many sacrifices as he is? But it does show you that there's power in collaboration, there's power in followership. So on that note, Edmond, I'm going to pause now, and maybe we can carry on the conversation two-way or with multiple participants. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Segun. You've really brought to my mind a fresh perspective, and my brain is buzzing a little bit, I must tell you, in this little short thing that you have presented thus far. And let me summarize, and I hope everybody's listening to me, what I have heard you say, that number one, in a time of change, there are about three critical elements that you need to drive that change through, or that leadership in a time of change. Number one, the power of ideas, the ability to have new ideas, fresh ideas, strong ideas, and ideas that you can push through. Number two, the power of diversity of thought. i.e. different kinds of backgrounds and strengths and thinking coming together to maybe emphasize or publicize or amplify the idea that may have been spewed out, okay? And then the ability to drive some kind of a change by driving your leadership strength in front. And then from the video also, I got the critical factor in having a first follower. I think these are all very, very strong points in leadership. And if you wanted to relate it to the Nigerian issue before I throw the field open for questions, how has this played out with our leadership in Nigeria, or how has this affected where we are in Nigeria right now? From where you stand, I mean, you are out looking in, you've done business in Nigeria. You may not have lived here, but you've been in and out a few times. Maybe I will join your mother in prayer to bring you back, because we need some good ideas here, and so on and so forth. But how does this, what can we pick out of what you have said for the benefit of Nigeria and driving Nigeria forward?
I mean, taking all of those points, PI, I would say that on
Everybody was sharing. Did you hear? Did you hear me?
yes, I did.
Yeah. So how does this play? How does this play out?
Yes, I was just about to start answering. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
Please
you can
go
hear
ahead.
me. Okay. Yes. So I was starting off by saying that you know, when you take the first point I made about the power of ideas, you know, having grown up in Nigeria, and I remember my early years, and I don't know whether this is true for people of my generation on this platform, but growing up in Ibadan in the 1970s and coming to school in England in the early 80s, you know, I came with a sense of identity, a sense that, you know, I'm coming from a country that is imbued with intellectual prowess, with financial prowess, with size, with the population. I always say that one of the things that has stood me in good stead in my career in England, and I sometimes I'm called upon a lot to talk about, you know, how I've quote unquote made it, and to other black particularly junior people, and I always start off by saying, look, some of the things I went through, some of the advantages I think I had coming from Nigeria are not things which you have, perhaps because you were born here and the way you imbibed certain values and identities is not the same. And the reason I say that is that what gave me confidence navigating my way through boarding school, public school, with, you know, you will know as well as many others that, you know, the overt racism, the ignorance. What gave me resilience was that sense of, I know where I'm coming from. You know, I can say with pride, this is who I am, other than just being seen as a blackface in England. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that, and it's clearly a combination of factors that has led Nigeria to the point where it is now, which is that its name is no longer. There are fewer things, fewer positive things that are associated with Nigeria than there were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And I'm one that I don't subscribe to a sort of nostalgic viewpoint that, you know, oh, you know, things were always better in the 70s and 80s. We all know that there's huge progress that has been made. So I think that idea, that ability to generate a sense that Nigeria is good at this, it is taking a position on that against that particular stance in the Committee of Nations, is something that I find is not as prevalent or is lacking. And how we rediscover that, how we rejuvenate that national spirit, that national pride, is and you can have it before you have the fruits or necessarily the results to show for it. And I know governments have tried, they've had, you know, rejuvenation of national pride and parades, but I think it's much more fundamental than that. There needs to be we need to get it down to an essence. We need to get it down to a something that is easily graspable, something that's easily sellable. Is it that we are, you know, we used to call ourselves the giant of Africa. I used to like that. That resonated with me. We stood proud. How do you project that? It could be in the form of leadership. It could be in the form of grabbing hold of an economic plan that focuses on one or two things. And I listened to Professor Idrushe, one of my seniors, just before this started, and he was talking about the various issues that Nigeria faces, which are myriad. But I actually think that we can get so lost in trying to do so many things that we don't do the most simple thing. Find the one thing. What is the one thing that Nigeria that could be transformative in Nigeria? Not many people would agree with me, but it could be power. It could be fixing our you know, electrifying the country. I shudder. I can't think of any example of a country that's properly industrialized without having adequate power supply. And we can talk about, and I know Mr. Jegede was talking about data, and other people were talking about different things, but without that essence, without that thing, that energy drive, electrical energy drive, we're not going to make that leap. So taking it back to the idea around which we can coalesce, it might be the idea around which we coalesce is that we're going to make this our focus. Yes, there are security problems, there are other issues, but this is one thing that without which other things will not work. And it could be that is the national project. A government decides, right, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is our thing. This is our one thing. What is your one thing? Pick it, stick with it, get people invested in it. When people are invested in something so powerful, other things flow from it. So that's my thinking on that. And you know, I rambled a bit, but I think I got there at the end. I mean, looking at the question of diversity, look, I know that there are. One could go back historically, and I have this argument with people who are better versed in Nigeria's history than me, and who say, well, Nigeria was put together. It was put together because, you know, the British were looking to, they were up to their their usual no good, and we ended up where we are. We shouldn't have been put together. The fact is, we are where we are, and we could be, and were a great nation, and can still be a great nation. Not by balkanizing ourselves, and I'm happy, and I know reasonable minds can disagree on that point, but I think there's still much more to be gained by Nigeria as it is, recognizing that diversity requires work. It requires leaders to accept that the natural tendency for people to other, you know, you have the whole in-group, out-group, this is my group, I get myself an identity from it. There needs to be a break of that system. And whether it's in the political system, whether it's in the economic system, But back in the days when the NYSC was something, that to me was a program that had embedded in it the right ethos. Unfortunately, I'm not sure whether it still serves that purpose, but I think an engendering of a cross-national spirit is still for me a surer way to success as a nation than balkanization. And followership, I think that's probably the idea that I think has most promise in Nigeria, because we are natural participants. We like to be involved. This platform is an example of it. You know, I always say to my wife, when Nigerians get together, it's not that they're arguing, they're just talking. You know, that's how we are. We engage ourselves. So I think the power of followership is innate in us. We just need to ensure that we are following the right we're following the right leaders, and we're pointing in the right direction. So I'll stop there, PI.
Okay, that's excellent. And those are very good perspectives. And I'm going to be asking people to ask a few questions shortly. And if they want to ask a question, they should please raise their hands, or they should button at some stage. But I wanted to ask you a question that I ask a lot of people. And I want to get your perspective on it, your thoughts. Your thoughts, your thinking, your ideas, and so on and so forth. And this question is very uppermost in my mind. Really, what can we do? What can we do in Nigeria to effect some kind of good leadership? I'm very worried. 2023 is coming through. I must confess that a lot of us are not quite satisfied with the depth and level of leadership we've had in Nigeria, not just now, but over the last 60 years. And that largely is responsible for where we are. Okay. So what do you think from your perspective we can do to ensure that come 2023 and beyond, we get the right kind of leadership at the top and in every strata that requires leadership in Nigeria?
That's a $60 million question. How do we find leaders that can be effective in the current political setup? How can we break through and get those people front and center? I mean, one has to be realistic about this. One has to accept that the party system, and we see it in many other countries. It's not just Nigeria. It's not just unique to Nigeria. You have a political system dominated by parties which historically and have had an endemic hold on power. And to my mind, we can do one of two things. You can either try and break that system by establishing an alternative force, in the sense of another party or parties, that you build up grassroots and you challenge the hegemony of the 2 or 3 or 4 party states, 2, 3, 4 parties that are dominating, or you raise up enough people within the same political structures, the same political parties, who are able to influence the direction of those parties. And we've seen that can be done effectively, maybe in slightly more politically mature countries. But I think that I think that what it requires, first of all, is to identify that pool of talent from which you're going to be pushing people. And I think it needs to be intentional, because when you look at the way um, uh, uh, politics works, it does need to be intentional. Nothing happens by accident. But I think the first start is to identify a pool of people, hopefully cross-national, that are able to, with the right will, with the right intention. I know it's been tried in the past. I know there are many experiments of young people getting together, whether it's young professionals or whatever else from days gone past. But the fact that they haven't necessarily, quote unquote, succeeded doesn't mean that model is not viable. I think you just, quite to be honest, just need to keep trying and trying and trying, and they'll get a point where the the way I put it at the moment, the cognitive dissonance in Nigeria is just so intense. The gap between what is and what people want it to be is getting to a point where, I'm not going to say something has to give, but it's getting to the point where you might get to a tipping point where people are just have had enough and are saying, well, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to get involved. And that's the catalyst you need. So I think the structure or the means by which that happens and feeds into effective leadership and realistic contention at the political level is secondary. I think what you need first is through platforms like this and others, getting a group of people like-minded who are prepared either to give the time or other resources to effective change, and being willing to stand up and to say, this is what I stand for, and you need to follow it, and who are prepared to make that sacrifice, because it will be a sacrifice. Pia, you're on mute, I think.
I said the first shirtless dancer. That's what we're trying to do. We're going to be dancing like crazy now. All over the place. And then hopefully we'll get the first joiner. We'll get Boris Johnson to join us. Or we call Megan to come and join us in the dance. And then make sure that we get a movement. We really need a movement in Nigeria of very, very serious and sincere people who truly, truly love this country. You know, a lot of people just simply don't like Nigeria. They don't really care about this country and about the majority of people. And that's really what we all are suffering from. And they're more interested in their own vested interests. Just yesterday or a few days ago, the government has decided to invest $1.5 billion in turning around a refinery that's dead. So we're going to look for 1.5 billion taxpayers' money or oil revenue to turn around a refinery. Okay. Now, Dangote is building a refinery that we don't have capacity to receive its product, so he has to export some of it. Not only that, we don't know how much of that money will go into graft and things like that. And not only that, Nigeria would have done a lot better just to privatize that refinery or sell it off and use the money to do something else, okay? But somebody somewhere who thinks that it is to their own advantage has been able to hoodwink government into investing another $1.5 billion in a refinery that will not work. These are the issues we are having in Nigeria, and these are the issues that we all need to speak to and say enough is enough. People are expecting and thinking that we can work magic with our foreign exchange and change the rates when you are not producing anything that's available for export. Okay, so Segun, if you are going to advise government, although to be honest, it's difficult to advise people who don't want to take advice, but what would you think? You said power. What other priorities do you think a good government should really be looking at to tip the economy of Nigeria at this point in time? What should a good leader be looking at in this season of change?
I think the answer to that is very simple. And this is the school of thought I subscribe to. The job of government is to provide the infrastructure that's required for its citizens to thrive. Yes, there will be circumstances in which the state needs to step in, and we've seen that quite effective during this time of pandemic. But in ordinary times, the job of government is quite frankly to get out of the way and let its people, particularly a country like Nigeria, which has shown time and again that it is peopled by hugely creative, entrepreneurial people who don't need much of an excuse to get on with their lives and to make their lives better. So my advice to any government would be: do what you need to do to give your people the infrastructure they need. That's where the energy point comes from, and whether it's the government facilitating that by establishing the right regulatory framework to allow private investors to come in. It is around providing security. It is providing a public education. And going back to politics 101, what a national government is there to do: get the basics right and get out of the way of your people's business. So create the environment. That is what I would suggest that government does. We all know that the Nigerian state is probably one of the most expensive in per capita terms of any state around the world. So that needs to be looked at, and it's going to take a brave government in Nigeria because we have become so used to doing things in a certain way. The dependence of government revenues on a predominantly on a single source of income, hydrocarbons, is unhealthy. I don't think there are many people who would disagree with that. And so it's going to take a brave government to wean itself off that and to reestablish a social and political contract with the people, which is to say, we serve you, you pay your taxes so that we can provide you with the infrastructure you need to get on with your lives. Again, this is just politics 101, I'm afraid, but there's nothing that, to my mind, the simplest solutions are always the most valid ones. But it requires a change in mindset. And it requires people, Nigerian people, including everyone on this platform, to accept that there will be sacrifices in terms of what it is we're used to as well. And I don't want to sound too hectoring, but it's always the people over there who are the ones who are doing something bad. It's always the people over there, but we all have to take a hard look at ourselves and also ask ourselves, how we contribute to the various compromises which we all know exist, and whether we would be prepared to do our part in calling out those compromises ourselves. So it goes back to the leadership and followership point. If the government says that we're going to make a difficult decision, how willing are we all to bear our own share of those difficulties, assuming that you have a government and leadership that people say have vested their trust and confidence in. It's a bit chicken and egg, but there we are.
Okay, I think Bumi Lawson has a question. So can I please ask Mrs. Bumi Lawson if she would like to ask her question.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much to the speaker, Segun, for sharing your thoughts on leadership. I was particularly intrigued with the issue of the first follower, because I somehow feel that that is the main issue in Nigeria, especially in the political landscape. Last elections, we had a number of new players who, if you look at their private lives and their business acumen, seem to be like good leaders. But I don't know if we have followers. Why don't we? What do you think would be the reason why we don't have that first followership? People who would say, okay, I'm going to follow this person, as opposed to setting up another political party and then fragmenting that movement. So is it a culture thing, or is it something that ourselves is important to us?
Sorry, you dropped off there at the very end, but I think I got your the gist of your question.
Okay.
Which is why don't we have more first followers?
Why have more first followers?
Yes, I think it probably goes back to the point I was just making, which is how much are we individually prepared to risk our own reputations, our own need for security, our own need for prestige, our own need for power, to how much are we prepared to put that at risk? And it's a human response. We're adaptive in that sense. If something looks risky, the tendency is that we will shy away from it. So I think it does require a higher level of consciousness, of values, if you like, that says this is something which I hold dear enough that yes, I instinctively want to protect my reputation, my standing, but this person has an idea, and I may not be able to see it all the way. Such is life, that nothing is certain. But this is an idea whose time has come for me, and therefore I'm prepared to put that those fears aside. So I think it's a consciousness thing. It's an education thing. But I don't think it's necessarily cultural. And I know that we sometimes talk about Nigeria as being a very materialistic and me oriented culture. I wouldn't say that Nigeria is any more that way inclined than any other country, if I'm perfectly honest with you. People are people. But what has happened in other societies, in other economies and countries, and it goes back to my point about Italy in the 1870s being seen as just a collection of rivaling states, is that sometimes it takes time to build that consciousness, but it's a movement. It may start and stop, but it needs to get started. So I'm not. The challenge is huge, but I try not to despair, because the other thing about change is that when you're living through it, you're the very last person to notice it. So I think that the more we can do, the more we can have these conversations, but the more action actually follows. Looking back, we will see that things happened and we didn't know that they were happening. As one of my favorite sayings is from Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, who says that the difficulties of life is that it has to be lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. So that's a challenge which we all have, and it's always also a numbers game. Not everybody has to do it; just sufficient numbers have to get involved. So all of those people on that hill at that festival weren't first followers. There was just one and then two. That's what you need. So I would say we shouldn't despair. There, hope and pray that those followers and that followership will start, and it will catch fire.
Thank you very much, Segun. Thank you very much. There are quite a few people on the platform wanting to ask one question or the other. Can I please ask Theodore Awani? Theodore Awani, he has a question. And I know that Chief Olabi Drojaye is on the platform. He and I had quite an interesting conversation after last week's program. So I'll be asking him to make a comment or the other, maybe after Theodore Awani. So Theodore, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Segun. You've spoken very well. And also areas that I'm really interested in, which is talking about change and equality and diversity. Before I come to my question, Pastor Etua, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. You know, we love you. Everything that you're doing on the platform and how you're getting people together is just amazing. God will bless you, sir. I think for me, there are quite a few things before I ask my question. So you're talking about Nigeria and change. And one thing that really comes to me is the fact that I feel that there are a lot of professionals in the diaspora who really can be doing a lot more for Nigeria at the moment, or helping out. And I know there's this whole movement about change, about the leadership, about our leaders. But sometimes I feel, and as you've pointed to, that change needs to start from each and every one of us. Do we have to wait for change from for this big political party before we start doing something? I look at people in Ghana, people who've come from the diaspora, who've moved to Ghana. They're building state-of-the-art hospitals. Their doctors are coming together doing that. They're building estates with smart houses. So my question is, what is stopping us Nigerians from doing that? That's the first question. What should we be doing? What is stopping us? And then the second thing is, what is in our DNA that is stopping us from doing that? Because I think it's deeper. It's actually deeper than having a leader that is a thief or people who are corrupt. What is it about us Nigerians that we need to start looking inwards, so that we're making sure that the person who is next door is not hungry. The person who is across the road, who is starving, we need to help. What do we need to start doing, sir? Thank you.
Segun, can you have some thoughts on that, please?
Yes, I'm just gathering them, PI. It's such a powerful point and such a good question. What can be done privately without government taking the initiative to plug these gaps? I mean, I would, again, I'm not sure that it's necessarily as binary as you've described it, because there are people who are doing exactly what you've described, who are who are clubbing together, maybe don't make too much noise about it, who are certainly in the charity world. Personally, I know myriad people who make enormous contributions to those who are less well off, who are indigent. So I'm trying to break the narrative that Nigerians are predominantly selfish people who don't look after others. Yes, we always know, we all will hear stories about greed, about excess, etc., etc. But the vast majority of people, I think, and judging by the numbers on this platform, the comments on this platform, think differently. So it's not that there aren't people there. Do we want to have more people? Do we want to make it more visible? Do we want to promote the concept of followership by making more public our contributions? Then definitely there's a place for that. Can we utilize, for instance, modern tons of financial products that can be harnessed to enhance the financial power of those either in the diaspora or elsewhere who wish to leverage their capital to make investments? So I think that in the same way that we're talking about like-minded people coalescing around ideas on politics, then same thing can happen and should happen around self-help. Again, not relying on government. But I honestly don't think that there is anything innate in us, innate in Nigerians that makes those civic values absent. And yes, we can all rightly say, well, look, there has been a deterioration in values in the public space, in business, and the risk profile of Nigeria on the index of corruption tells its own story about that. Yeah, I completely see all of that, but I also think that the power of people to challenge that narrative is underrated, and it may be a delivery issue as opposed to a resource thing. So it may be that those who are like you, who are committed to making a difference, need to start blowing your own trumpet and saying, well, there's a different narrative, and that in itself has a catalytic it acts as a catalyst to engender and encourage other people to come on board. So that's my response. I don't think it's as binary as that, and maybe I'm a foolish optimist.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
No, I was going to say maybe I'm just an eternal optimist, and I try not to give into a council of despair.
We have to be optimistic about Nigeria. We just have to be. We have to keep thinking it through. I don't know if Chief Drojaye is around. A senator, ran 2 times for presidency, and he has such depth of experience, and is one of the people who has made huge sacrifices for Nigeria, sometimes forgotten, been in detention for the sake of this country. I don't know, sir, if you have any comments to make at this point. If you want to unmute yourself, sir. You have to unmute yourself, sir. Yes. If we can get the unmute button. I think it's okay. Good, you got it. Yes, sir.
Now, yeah. I said I joined midway during the discussions, so I didn't get the whole gist of what you have been saying, and I would rather reserve my comments now.
Okay, all right.
I didn't get the gist of what. Yes. Unlike last week, that of last week, I really participated right from beginning to the end, and I gave you my comments later that day.
Yeah. Okay, we've been talking about.
As somebody said before, you are doing a good job. Let's continue. Joe is better than war. we'll find a solution to our problems.
Maybe I can price you out to ask you a question. Maybe I can price you out to ask you a question on this platform. Yesterday, some people made a pronouncement or so about the Yoruba Republic or the Odua Republic and so on and so forth. I don't know if you saw it. It was circulating on the social media. And some other gentleman, Sari Dokubo, made some kind of pronouncement about the Biafra, something. Where do you think we are heading, sir? And is this the right way to go? All sorts of people wanting to start different kinds of things here and there, and so on and so forth.
The only organization I've expressed my opinion to on this issue is the Senate. They invited opinion of Nigerians September last year, and I gave a 9-page comment touching this issue about Odua Republic. And I think in my comments, my private talk with you last week, I did say that we tend to talk too much about certain things. And especially those of us in the Southwest, there's scarcely anything I want to say that people like General Obasanjo, Professor Wole Soyinka, Papa Adebanjo, Wale Oshun, Sunday Igboho, so many, and Adams, they've all spoken about some of these problems that we have. It is not by talking others that we find solution to our problem. These things are more fundamental than we think to be talking about. I will still want to reserve my comments until we're able to have some deep reflection. It's not a question of individuals just saying, this is the answer, this is the answer. We won't get it that way. We need to have a coming together and agree on certain ways to go on. There are certain fundamentals that I referred to you last week when I said there's great advantage in our size. Those countries that have made it great are countries that have numbers behind them. Look at the United States of America, China today, India, the USSR before, say in the past, before the past 15 years or past 10 years. Number is something which is an advantage for Nigeria. I think what we'll be thinking of is how we can maintain that cohesion to be one nation should be our utmost and ultimate desire. And we need to talk about it. It is if we fail to agree, then we rue it, we face the consequences. It's the last thing that people want to put first. I would not like us to do that. Let me preserve my feelings about these things. It's more fundamental how I feel about these things than what I want to say on a individual basis. I would like to have discussion with some group of people. How do we make this country work? How do we have a true union? Not a union of the horse rider and the horse. A union of equals. We must talk together. You are a priest. He said that can two work together on so that they agree? So there's something to be done about our constitution, the instrument that puts us together. These are not things individuals just be talking about and to know who can shout the loudest. We really have to talk and see how we move forward, which is better for us than our individual way, just destruction of a very noble thing God has created here. This is a fantastic country if we want to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Those are very valuable comments. And we will come and see you. I will come and see you for something a bit more in-depth conversation and all that. But taking a cue from that, yes, sir. I will do that, sir. Definitely. If I owe you,
I will
I
welcome
owe you a few.
You're always welcome.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Segun, taking a cue from Chief Trodaye's comments about diversity, and you did make a comment about the power of diversity of thought. It's looking as though in Nigeria, we don't quite appreciate our diversity, and we think it's a problem. What do you think we need to do to better appreciate this diversity and use it as a strength and not as a weakness? What do we need to do, or what do each divergent group need to do, instead of looking at it as well? It's tending now to look almost as a problem.
Yeah.
What do you think from your own experience working in a diverse organization of different backgrounds, and how it has worked for the US?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful point that Sir made. As I described earlier, I think it's almost a innate trait that we all gain strength from our story. You know, the story of our own families, our own kin, our own city, our own country, our own part of the world, people who speak the same language as us. There is a comfort that comes from likeness, and there's a cognitive bias as well. You know, our brains like it when we find people who confirm our own way of seeing the world. So it's you know, there is a force that keeps us together. But I think the greater force and the greater good comes from breaking out of those silos, from actually hearing, rather than seeing people who are outside your group as a threat to the unity of your group, learning who they are, learning how they see the world, how they see the same problems that you are seeing. And that comes from knowing and genuinely knowing how they feel and how they see the world. Having a proper conversation. I'm not talking about conversation like I tend to have, which is, you know, you're having a conversation, the other person is answering, and you're already calculating how you're going to respond, and, you know, going to fire the person back with the strength of your wisdom. But actually listening, you know, the power of listening with an open ear and an open heart is one of the hardest things to do. And I've learned that off the back of George Floyd being killed, and the conversations we were having in my firm. You know, we had a lot of white people were like, you know, we didn't know that this is how it was. You know, genuinely, you know, we saw black people and we thought, well, okay, yeah, they've got their own issues. But when there was that huge outpouring, when people actually started to say, look, you can be shopping while black. It's a different experience. The fact that I walk into a shop and I have people following me or profiling me, you don't, as a white person, you don't have that. And it's only by talking and having open, psychologically safe places where people can express themselves and know that they will be heard, that you start to gain understanding. There's no greater weapon against, from my own view, prejudice and fear than actually getting to know people. Not that, oh, I know one of my friends is black and my best friend at school was black. No, when was the last person you actually had a conversation with a black person? So and you know, we started we almost created we created a safe space within my firm where every week we had a podcast where somebody from a different ethnicity would talk about themselves. And you can imagine this in the corporate setting. We called it off script because there were no holds barred. You had your say on what it meant to be, you know, Black or Asian American or of a different faith. So you create a space where people actually start to listen and learn and start to understand that these problems that we think are dividing us, they're actually problems which we're all trying to solve, and we all have a part to play in how they are perceived and how they can be resolved. So whether it's a national, you know, I don't know, talking shop where people actually do have their say, but there can be no resolution without conversation. I'm convinced of that. And when things get so loud that people are clamoring for change and people are crying out, I do think that yes, people want action, but there is a lot to be said for actually understanding where people are coming from, and you'll be surprised that the things that you have in common are much greater than the things that hold you apart.
Thank you very much. I'll take a couple more questions right now. A friend of mine, Edem Anda, can we mute our mics, please? That's Lagos traffic. Bambo. Somebody's in the traffic. Can you mute your mic, please? Sounds like you're in the middle of Ajegunle right there. All right. Edem Anda had made a comment. I don't know if he wants to expatiate on that comment and if he wants to unmute himself. And then thereafter, I'm going to take on Ibrahim Palm, who made some useful comments last time. Edem, are you there? If Edem is not ready, Ibrahim, can you unmute yourself, please, and make your comment?
Thank you very much, Pastor Itwa. And thank you to Segun Osuntokun. I think I've really enjoyed your conversation. But I wanted to first of all pay tribute to Chief Durujaye. I see he's just stood up. And I remember listening to his testimony at the Oputa panel, where he talked about how he was put in the dungeon in DMI in Apapa, and his life was threatened. It was a very dramatic story, but I wouldn't tell it here, but just to pay tribute to him. And taking it from that point, I would like to ask Segun to reflect on a couple of things. And get your views on it. I mean, first of all, just to accept your proposition that it must start with an idea. We must have basically an idea about what the big goal is. And I think that's where the whole concept of ideology came to be. And when you referred to Chief Awolowo earlier in your remarks, he was one leader who espoused an ideology, and you were sure about what he stood for. And he spoke about, you know, a social welfare state that would provide for its people, would undertake to meet the contract of the state and the people. And I think one of the big failings we've had in Nigeria since is the lack of an ideology. So we have people going into government in pursuit of, and let me be charitable, even if they were nationalistic and did have good intentions, but they pursued single goals which on their own are not sufficient to found a government, a framework to support a political system or government. And so I think your point about an idea is critical, is very important. But just to take it from what I just said, and welcome back, Chief Durujaye. I was just talking about you. Thank you, sir. I think what Pastor Itwa is bringing together here is a group that would talk about how to catalyze leadership in Nigeria. So working with the theoretical framework you've put down, Segun, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how, for example, and some of what we've seen people do is set up new political parties, new vehicles to try to contest for power. And that often fails. So you have some really brilliant people in 2019 elections. We had some really brilliant people come forward, but they were coming on a platform that just did not have a chance. But if you look, for example, at the Labour Party in the UK, it's a coalition of people coming with different ideas and different ideologies. And they come together to use the platform that is well established in order to project those ideas. So you have the extreme left, those who even tend towards an extreme socialism or fringing on communism, and you have those who are left of center, the Tony Blairs and so on. And that contest continues on that platform within that political party. In the US, the Democratic Party, clearly you have people, the ladies who are termed the squad, people who are on the extreme left and who project socialist ideas, Bernie Sanders and people like that. And then you have those who, like the Clintons and the Bidens, are sort of left of center, and the Obamas. So my point is, as Pastor Itwa is helping to coalesce this leadership forum, would it not serve us better if we all engaged with the current platforms? We have two big political parties in Nigeria today and a couple of fringe ones. Would it not serve better if those who aspire go into those, work with those platforms and bring to bear, by the pressure of their arguments and their mobilizations, because you have to be a very strong organizer if you want to be politically successful, and work on those platforms to project the ideas that you want to see in government, and then use those platforms to actually contest political office. Because, you know, going on the outside, you don't really stand a chance. And I just wonder what you think about how we can engage using those existing political parties as a platform to reform and to project new ideas and to project new leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I mean, I agree with you on the point about being able to muster a credible third or outside force. And I made the point earlier. I said that it's difficult when you have systems that have run for quite a long time with established political infrastructure, that it's difficult to break in when you set up a new force. I mean, don't forget though, it's not impossible. I mean, the Social Democratic, the SDP in Britain had a long period of success. I think, you know, they were a third force in British politics for a long time, and they started from scratch. Well, they were a breakaway from the Labour Party, but they had a good run for, I think, 13, 14 years. So it can be done, but they are probably the exception more than the rule. And the alternative I posited was that using the existing structures holds more promise than trying to start a fresh start. So I endorse that. And as an alternative, now we all know that wherever you are in politics, whether it's in Nigeria, in the UK, and the US, your point is a key one. You need to be a strong organizer. It needs time. It needs attention. It needs resources, and you can't do it half-heartedly. You're either all in or you're not, and that's the key. And like many of you, I'm sure you've read Barack Obama's "A Promised Land," and you know what I just couldn't get over, and having read his other two books, just, you know, his history in organizing. He was an organizer Until I read his book, I didn't know what an organizer was. What do you mean you're an organizer? Well, that's what he did. He organized. That was his forte. And I think that level of commitment and sacrifice, and not being not being put off by the challenge that you will face in trying to build a broad-based coalition. Your point about ideology is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. That when you look at the history of politics and leadership, it is around people having strong ideas about what the sort of society they want to build. And yes, you might go from the extreme left to the extreme right, and we all know which ones are not desirable. But there's a broad swathe in the middle, from the center left to the center right, where you know that you can have decent disagreements on what is a good life, what makes a good citizen, what is a good what is a good life for your people to lead through different means. But they can all provide a stable platform for leadership and governance. So yes, if the current structures are the surest route to getting hands on the levers of change, then that has got to be definitely on the cards. So I agree with you 100% on that. Pierre, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. I just okay. That's fantastic. I think we also have somebody who would like to ask a question. They've been making comments on the platform. Let me invite Adetutu Ogunleye. Adetutu Ogunleye. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and make your comments or ask your questions very quickly. Is Adetutu there? Okay. If they're not coming on, let me ask you, Segun, a question.
Hello, Pastor.
You want to make your comments, Adetutu, or you just want to make a quick echo?
Hello, I'm right here.
That is a very good echo, Adetutu. But what we wanted was a question, not an echo. Do you have any question? Bamba, I don't know why you're laughing. Do you have any question, Adetutu? All right. Let's go on, Segun. Let me ask you a quick question, and we're about to round up now. And somebody was saying something about the different parties and the difficulty of starting a new party and this and that and the other one. But what are your own thoughts, really? Right now in Nigeria, we have the PDP, we have the APC. Somebody said the other day that there are two sides of the same coin, that one day somebody is in PDP, the next day is in APC, the day after is back in PDP, and they're just tossing everybody up and down. No ideology, there's nothing they really stand for, and they're more like platforms on which people just run for office. Now, if you were to recommend for Nigeria, based on where you stand and your knowledge, no matter how little or much, about these parties and what to do, how would you think that one could effect a change? You know, Tony Tokuda is saying that the parties are being hijacked by people who are not very competent. I don't want to use the exact words she used on the platform, but she made a very strong comment there that they're being hijacked by all sorts of people. What would you recommend? Would you recommend some kind of making stronger these two parties, or you think that there's no hope and we should be looking for a third force in Nigeria?
you're putting me a little bit on the spot there. I'll try and answer it with as much candor, but with also as much sensitivity as I can. Again, I'll make the point that there are seldom binary situations in life. Nothing is ever wholly bad, and nothing is ever wholly good. There are people in all of those parties who I believe wish to do the right thing, have a vision of Nigeria which would be the same as anybody else here, and I'm not well versed enough in the intra-party issues to call one party this, that, or the other. All I would advocate is that there are people who go into politics for the right reasons, and I know many of them, and some of them are members of all those parties as well. The challenge is teaming up with those people, forging the right, going back to the basics about what is your idea about what makes a good citizen, what is a good life for Nigerians to aspire to, and what can be delivered. And I do think, again, I will go back to my point about dialogue and effort and making the sacrifices. So I'm afraid I don't want to. My position is not that these parties are beyond repair, because that would be condemning everybody in those parties, which I don't think is the right thing to do. There are people who are there for the right reason, trying in the face of many challenges to do the right thing. And I think it's a question of identifying them, building around them, being followers of those people and say, yes, we see you, we know what you're trying to do. Yes, there are challenges, but this is where I have enough of a shared vision with you that I think I and others like me can follow you and provide support. That's where I stand. I hope it's not too much of a politician's answer in itself, but I will leave it there.
Well, I will let you go. I will let you go. Ibrahim agrees with you that power is not given away freely. You have to really contest for that power. So maybe let me just have you take some closing comments and closing remarks and thoughts that you like to leave us with, and things that you think we really should be doing to granulate this thing. And I have a question I usually ask people on the platform to think about and to reply to just before they sign off. If you were president of Nigeria, what would you do to make Nigeria great again? You can add that to your closing remarks, but basically, if you have any thoughts you want to leave us with, I really want to thank you, Segun, for coming on this platform. You've given me, to be honest, a very, very deep, insightful, and fresh perspective to this issue of trying to drive change, trying to have the boldness and the confidence, even if you are looking ridiculous or you look a little bit out of joint. But if you really believe in what you want to do, then do the shirtless dance and keep doing the shirtless dance until you get that first joiner, if you really believe in yourself. And somehow or the other, God then makes it possible for other people to join that belief, because you believe in yourself to dance crazy enough for long enough and make people know that you are serious about this. So I think that's really exciting for me. So I'd like to just hear your closing remarks and then speak to that very question that I speak. Let me tell everybody that we'll be back on the platform next week. And I'll be talking on the issue of Fulani herdsmen and the challenges of this situation in Nigeria at this point in time. The Nigerian herdsmen and the crop farmer matters arising. We're having a Professor Zakari Gundu of the Department of Archaeology, Ahmadu Bello University, I hear that he has a lot of depth and strength on this subject matter. The Nigerian herdsman and the crop farmer matters arising. And I think we're going to try and unearth the history, the background, the ethos, and the reason why in 2021 this has become such a very, very topical issue. And I'd like to invite everybody to please try and sit in so that we may be able to get a perspective of how to solve this particular problem. Professor Zakari is well known, very well spoken, very, very researched, and very well highly recommended to give us a perspective on this issue. Please try and invite people. And I think very soon we'll be able to land somewhere. In the meanwhile, Segun, thank you so much. Greet Queen Elizabeth for us. Tell her that we wish her well, and we wish her strength in her leadership in this season of royal change with our great prince speaking all he's saying. But nonetheless, please give us your closing remarks and your thoughts. Thank you,
very much, PI. And thank you very much for hosting me on the platform. I've had an amazing time. I have been challenged in ways that I've never been before, and it's an honor to have so many people listening in and asking questions and making comments. I've been following the comments on the chat box, so thank you all very much. I think that the closing remark which I want to make is one of optimism. I've said it that I'm an optimist as far as Nigeria is concerned. I know that there's a lot that one can despair about, but I go back to my fundamental premise that I do not think Nigeria is fundamentally any different in its people and what they want, which is a good life for them, for themselves, for their family, and their loved ones. And the power of change is such that once it catches, it can flip things in an instant, relatively quickly speaking. So my own message, my message is there are reasons to be hopeful. This platform is definitely one of them, and I know that there'll be other conversations like this going on. You asked what would I do if I was president of Nigeria? Is that the question? Am I allowed that? Yeah. If I was, it would be the power of the one thing. What is the one thing that has the capacity to change Nigeria's trajectory? And there are a host of things as long as my arm. The question of security, education, etc., etc. But for me, I cannot get away from the necessity to have a stable and secure power supply. I'm sorry, I just cannot get away from it. And it might be thought of as being very basic, very commercially driven, but I think about the lives lived in other countries and around, not just the West, but in Africa as well. The basics of life. If you think about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, central to that is the ability to generate water, light, security, and power. To me is central to that. So if I had one thing, I would simply grab hold of that can of worms. And I was talking to a friend the other day who said, what you need is escape velocity. In the first 100 days, you attack it in a way which has never been attacked before. There will be forces of inertia, but you've got to crack that, and you've got to get it moving. With that, you will free up so much energy and so much potential that I personally believe all the other problems will fall into line. They won't be solved overnight, but without that capability, I'm afraid that we're going to be fighting. In circles. So that's my own one thing I would do if I had the power.
I hope you get the power. Somebody said you make a good president. Thank you so much, Segun. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you for being such an inspiration. Thank you for what you represent: strong family values, strong ethics, strong leadership. And thank you for being a light and a beacon in the UK where you are. Being of the very much. The Lord will bless you, the Lord will keep you, the Lord will strengthen you. Thank you for coming to the platform. I want to thank everybody. As usual, very, very, very encouraging. Many, many good questions. Sorry we couldn't take everybody right now. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday, same time, 5 p.m. with Professor Zakari Gundu, who is going to be sharing a very deep perspective, largely from the middle belt, of what they think is going on in Nigeria. God bless you all. Have a pleasant evening and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend ahead. Once again, my name is Ichi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
African Leadership Group, Nigerian Leadership Series. Thank you.
Congratulations. Well done. Well done. That was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Well
It's
done,
always
Segun.
good to
Well
be
done.
here.
Well done, Shags.
Always
Thank you,
good to be
Shags.
here. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Itwa.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I see you.
Yeah. See you.
Tafi the lady.
Yeah.
Bye.
Auntie, how are you? Good to see you as always.
It's always
Ngozi,
good to be here. It's always
you're
good to
looking
be
really
here.
relaxed. Auntie,
I
God
hope you
bless
saw.
you.
I hope you saw.
Thank you for having us.
I saw her downstairs. Yes.
All right. Then. Okay.
God bless you all. Thank
God
you.
bless you too. Have a blessed week.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, everyone.
God bless you. Thank you. Hey,
God bless you,
Sharif.
Pastor.
Sharif.
Well done.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Bolabi, great to see you.
Thank you, IP. God bless you. Take
God
care.
bless
God
you.
bless you.
Pastor.
God bless you all. One love,
Abadi,
everybody. We
good
will
to
get
see
there.
you. Thank you. We will get there.
Bless.
Ibrahim,
We will get there.
always good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Laureate.
Sheriff,
Hey, what's up, man?
how you doing now? How's America?
How are you? Good to see you.
I'm taking inoculation.
Well done, Pastor Itwa.
Pastor Etwa.
Bless you, Pastor Shela.
Pastor
Good to see
Etwa,
you. Eh?
your next presentation, you shouldn't wear anything, no. You should come and dance naked. Let's find out if you do anything. Let's see how your idea will stick and the rest of it. And I also like the fact that I think I last saw Segun when he was with DNA Piper. We flew together. I'm happy that he's now. So it is very good, and I like all he said. Basically, ideas will drive this thing.
Yeah.
The ideas will drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well done, Pastor Etra. No fine shirt. No
Thank
fine
you.
shirt.
Thank you. Sounds good. Good to see
That's
you.
naked.
God bless you.
Hello, Pastor Itwa.
Yes,
Hello.
I'm hearing you.
I'm so sorry because the volume for the program was not on. So I had to put my cell phone on and my computer on as well. So when you called on me, I wasn't prepared. So I was in between switching off my cell phone. So I'm so sorry.
Hello.
That's okay. Next time.
Next week.
Pastor Itwa, hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Thank you very much, my pastor.
Yes, sir.
I've enjoyed the program.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Bolaji Ayole.
Hey, my excellent.
How are you, sir?
How you doing, my brother? Good to hear from you.
SN is Jollofi party with his father-in-law. We are seeing him in the best of places. You didn't pass champagne down, no? Where's the champagne from that party?
I need prayers for Pastor Itwa.
I'm praying for you, my brother. I'm praying for you.
Thank you very much, sir. And I really enjoyed the perspective from my brother Osuntokun.
Oh, thank you. And a boy like us.
Oh yes, by the boy like us. We are the best.
We are the best. They can't
We are the best.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. All right, then. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Well done.
Good night. Okay, bye, Auntie. Thank you. Pat.